Malaysia was the first country in Asia that I visited. Upon graduation from Harvard, I backpacked happily for 4 months throughout Europe. Then, with funds exhausted, I flew via Moscow on Airflot to KL, then hitchhiked from KL to Tioman Island, where I stayed in a simple grass hut right on the beach, sketching portraits of the locals in trade for food and provisions. This was the fall of 1984, and I lived that ideal Malaysian life for far too few days before hitchhiking to Singapore, where I was hired the day I arrived. I loved being hard at work with Belt Collins in Singapore. The following week, they sent me on my first professional business trip, which was back to Malaysia, this time to the West Coast. Via Ipoh, I traveled by small plane, old Mercedes taxis, motorcycle, ferry, and a small wooden boat to arrive at Pangkor Laut. I remember on that first trip, I encountered the smelly durian on the side of the road, and curious, I bought one and loved it. They say if a foreigner loves durian at the first bite, he will stay in Asia the rest of his life. Well, I did, and I have. That first night I spent on Pangkor Laut, long before the hotel was open, was under 2 sheets of plywood propped up on each other, with a local dog, the rest of that durian, and in the pouring rain, I was happy as a clam. Working with the then very young Yo family, the first phase of Pangkor Laut was a series of shipping containers fitted out with simple toilets and a glass door, which, when I look back on it now, was absolutely awful. But then it was pretty darn good. My, how things have changed. Fast forward, in 1994, our first Bensley interior design commission came from Malaysian Airlines with the Four Seasons in Langkawi. I had concentrated on designing resort gardens before this. New job presented itself, and of course I was thrilled. I had concentrated on designing resort gardens before this. What a project with which to start interiors. We worked for 8 years with my classmate Lek Bunag and the talented Jeffrey Wilkes to shape what is now a Malaysian classic resort. In 2004, I had the good fortune to be interviewed by His Royal Highness the Sultan of Terengganu. We spoke of the magic and wonderful scale of the wooden traditional houses and the possibility of combining this with the architectural genre of the Alhambra in Spain. A few months later, we were presenting drawings, and a year later, we were actually building our first ever real live royal palace. Currently, in 2014, we're still designing and building the Istana of His Royal Highness the Sultan of Kuala Terengganu. The Istana, or palace, is a labor of love and a magnificent display of Islamic and local Malaysian architecture. With 101 and more rooms, from the most intimate to the most grand, from formal to tropically free and easy, we have created what many say is Malaysia's finest palace. I love this project and feel that we've been done a great honor to be engaged by the Sultan.